On today's show, it's Jock Landale's world, and we're all just living in it. We're going to talk about why his contributions were so pivotal in the Rockets' nail-biter win against the San Antonio Spurs, Jabari Smith Jr. with a big-time second half, and so much more. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin. The show, of course, at Locked On Rockets, free and available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including YouTube. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. And hey, as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day. Thank you for being an everydayer, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for making the show part of your day every single day. Joining us now is your weekly co-host, NBA draft enthusiast, and diehard Houston Rockets fan, Madison Moore. You can track down on Twitter at MadmanLeaks. And Madison, we are going to talk about Jock Landale and his reign of terror now when it comes to the NBA. We're going to get there in just a second, but first, right here at the top, before we get into the Rockets 103-101 nail-biter against the San Antonio Spurs, their fourth consecutive road win this season. We're breaking barriers here with this Rockets team, figuring out how to win games on the road. A quick medical update from the top. We got the positive news that Alperen Sengun did avoid serious injury with his leg injury that he sustained against the Sacramento Kings. We have specifics on the injury now, though. It is a grade 3 ankle sprain, a bone bruise in his knee, and his approximate timeline for recovery is about 3 to 4 weeks. That is incredibly significant because it means he's not going to miss months of time. There was nothing broken, no ligament damage. That is huge for Alperen Sengun. So some incredibly exciting news there. Something that we'll probably unpack a little bit further on our next episode as well. And then some unfortunate injury news. We knew Cam Whitmore was going to be missing this Rockets Spurs game with a knee injury. He has a sprained LCL and is expected to miss about 3 weeks or so, which really sucks because when it boils down to it, he's probably just going to miss the remainder of the season. I can't imagine that they would try to rush him back into things for the final, 3-4 handful of games or whatever, that final week or so in April. So 3 weeks out for Cam Whitmore. That probably puts him out for the remainder of the season, which is really unfortunate because it would have been really cool to see him and Amin and the rest of the young guys get a ton of run in the closing stretch. But just wanted to hammer home those medical updates really quick before we got into, oh my God, this game against the Spurs. First off, Madison, it felt so good to just get this dub, especially based on how things went the last time this team was in San Antonio and how disappointing that loss was to lose at the end of regulation, the free throws missed by Jabari, the overtime loss, all of that. This Rockets team exercised some of their San Antonio demons in this game, and they did that in a big way with big man Jock Landale, who came off the bench. The Rockets went with the starting lineup, injecting Amin Thompson into the starting lineup, slotting Jabari Smith Jr. over to the 5. But this was Jock Landale's game. He finished a team best plus 16 in his 26 minutes off the bench, 11 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, had a block, 5 of 8 shooting, 1 of 2 from long distance. Easily his best game of his Rockets career and of this season so far.
Yeah, Jock Landale was incredibly important for this Rockets win, and we probably don't get the win without Jock Landale tonight. I think he made a strong case for him to be in the starting lineup moving forward, and I think his defensive impact, presence, activity was excellent. His hustle was excellent. But I think the biggest impact he had was giving this offense purpose with his screening. I think the Rockets in the first quarter really struggled to generate good shots. They were taking and because they were struggling to generate good shots, they were taking the first semi-open shot they could find in the offense, which was often early and pretty bad shots. It's not the way you want to work your offense up. It's not enough ball movement in that offense. And when they tried to do a little bit more, it ended up being a broken play and a random player, Dillon Brooks, or, what other random player isolating and really taking a bad shot. So once Landale actually got into the game, his screening provided the windows of opportunity to get our guards downhill and get the defense moving. He also provided a roll target that no one else on this team provided all game. I hoped that Amon would be that roll target, and I think there's still some scheming for that to be available, because I think Amon can do a lot of the things that Sengun can do within 5 feet of 5 to 10 feet of the basket, right? But that just wasn't here for us tonight. You're going to have to learn to play together. But Landale already knows how to do those things, and when he came in, he finally gave the offense some purpose and ways to actually generate buckets. And once that happened, combined with that defense, we were able to turn around, and that's where that plus 15 truly shines.
We've talked about this before, but one of Sengun's strengths as a player on this Rockets roster is his screening ability, and that's why it was such a really disappointing revelation earlier this season when Jock Landale was struggling as much as he was, because as good as Jeff Green was earlier this season before he kind of experienced his drop off, he's not anywhere near the screener or the rolling presence that an Alperen Sengun or this version of a Jock Landale can be. When you have a guy that can set a crushing screen like that and really free up guards, it allows them to get downhill, right? It allows them to get open. If you set like a high screen and roll, get open for those, for 3-pointers right behind the arc. And that's exactly what we saw with Landale, where before he came in, right, the Rockets were very perimeter oriented. Occasionally they'd get a decent, breakdown, kind of an ISO play, and then attack and drive and kick and get the defense in rotation that way. It's a lot harder though when you don't have that initial screen to really free things up. That's something that Jabari Smith Jr. is going to have to get better at in his career. If he's going to play even small ball 5 minutes, he's got to become a better screener to be able to open up his guards to get things moving offensively. Loved that we saw from Jock Landale. Some of the passes that we saw from him, just the energy that he really brought to that lineup in the minutes that he got. And his post-game interview, right, just talking about the fact that, the next man up mentality, all that, the understanding that, they've got incredibly big shoes to fill with Alperen Sengun now gone, but they're not going to be able to do it as any one person. Jock can't do it. Jeff can't do it. Jabari can't do it by himself as the 5-man. So seeing him come in, and I really did think that, they did an excellent job as well, just talking kind of some of the defensive angle here, really making life difficult for Victor Wembanyama. He finished the game with just 13 points, only had 10 rebounds. His playmaking was pretty solid in the fact that when the Rockets did double him, he was able to find teammates, had 6 assists in this game. But I think overall, like the moments where Victor was, trying to crash the glass, trying to make things happen, wasn't really able to do so. And I really thought that Jock's physicality played a huge role in this game for sure.
Yeah, I think Jock's physicality was excellent. I thought he really anchored our defense in a way that no one else really could throughout the game for me. I mean, I thought we scrambled and rotated excellently, but sometimes you just can't account for size, right? Account for guys. And I thought he did really well on the boards. I thought he was really active, kept the ball alive. And overall, Jock Landale, to me, he is really given poor man Sengun. Like he just has a bit of that skill set.
He even hit a couple of those little shot puts from the lane, right? Where it's just like that. That's the Sengun shot.
He can finish in the lane. He can make the appropriate pass in the lane as well. He doesn't always do it, and that's why he's poor man Sengun, but he does it enough where I think he keeps this offense alive, and it's absolutely essential. We talk about how important screening is for Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green. You just talked about it earlier. Like, we need good screeners for these guys, because if they don't get good screens, you just rely on them beating their man one-on-one, and that's not going to happen every play down the court. And we rely on these guys to create open shots for everybody. So, man, shout out to Jock Landale, man. I think especially Thompson and Jabari Smith should really get in the film room and watch how he screens and rolls off those screens. Watch how he is constantly in the passing lane where he can be given the pocket pass, and watch how he rolls hard to the rim. If Jabari and Amin has to go on a crash course on how to screen and get open after the screen so they can make plays for others and so they can become just as effective as he is in order for this offense to flow.
There were two really impressive screens that really stand out when you think about, how impactful he was. There was one where he opened up Jalen Green for like a wide open three-pointer, just set a crushing screen on Jalen's defender. And then there was one later in the game where Jock had Wemby on him, and he set the initial screen for Fred VanVleet to get downhill towards the rim, and then set a secondary screen in the paint. It's almost one of those like borderline like illegal screens. Like I don't want to call it like a ghost screen or something, but it's one of those like slightly moving screens where the bigs kind of get tangled in the paint, and so the refs can't really call it. And that gave Fred VanVleet, like, Fred was almost surprised that he didn't have Wemby like shadowing over him and was able to go up. He didn't finish the bucket. He got fouled. That's the one where he got smacked in the face, but he got to the free throw line. And that was, just a couple of examples of how Jock has, been able to, or was able to unlock the Rockets offense in this game. But speaking of the Rockets offense, Jabari Smith Jr. had a goose egg in the first half, put up 15 points in the second half, a huge second half from him. We're going to talk about how the Rockets maintain their composure and were able to close out this game in San Antonio, as well as Jabari's big second half and other thoughts from this game coming up in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, Madison, the Rockets were able to pull out this win in San Antonio. Very different than what happened the last time this team was in San Antonio. It feels like years ago that this Rockets team, the second game of the season, way early on, all the way back in October, two very different basketball teams here. But this game was probably a lot closer than it necessarily needed to be. Some of that had to do with the fact that the Spurs just had, some contributions from guys like Trey Jones, who has not shot the ball well on the season from long distance. And yet in this game, he managed to go 4 of 7 from downtown. I believe he was 4 of 4 in the first half from long range. And then just kind of down the stretch of this one, right? They had some really kind of unnecessary fouls, especially from like Dillon Brooks, picking up the foul there late in regulation, his sixth foul, getting, not ejected from the game, but fouling out of the game, giving Jeremy Sohan that and one to pull the game within 1 point. I believe it was 99-98 at that point. And then it just became kind of a free throw battle down the stretch. But unlike the last time where Jabari Smith Jr. missed his 2 free throws in San Antonio, Jalen Green went to the free throw line with a 1 point lead, drained both free throws, ice in his veins. And then, a possession later, Aaron Holiday, same deal, gets to the free throw line. The Rockets were able to burn some clock at the very end of regulation. Kind of just the free throw battle going back and forth. Ime Udoka electing to go with the fouling strategy rather than letting the Spurs try and attempt a three-pointer to tie things up. And honestly, man, I get the math. I get the idea behind the strategy. It stresses me out, though, especially because the Rockets have been so bad at inbounding the ball, and they've also been really bad with their free throws. So it's like, I get you're trying to play the percentages, but there's a part of me in my heart that's like, maybe these percentages aren't in favor of the Rockets when you're doing it this way.
Yeah, but I feel like we lost a game on a crazy 3 that tied it and went to overtime this year, and I just feel like that's sitting in his head. So I understand why he did it, but yeah, I absolutely hate it. I mean, I feel like it's a coach's philosophy thing. Like it's one of those, like, what do you do or like, what does chicken come first, the egg or the chicken? It's one of those like things for coaching philosophy, and I really hate it. It's nerve wracking, and then it's really tough when you put a young team in that situation who isn't experienced winning games and being poised down the stretch. But we give the Rockets credit. This has been a weakness of them as of late. They've been playing excellent basketball for like the last, since we came back from the All-Star break. And the games that we have lost down the stretch, not being very poised. So it was good to see them, even though it was against a struggling Spurs team. This Spurs team has played more inspired lately, and they were in this game, and they were making it tough. And we were down a couple very good players. So it was very good to see the Rockets work their way through this win and stick to it and show some poise finally. So I just want to give our guys credit for that.
Absolutely.
It's growth. It's real growth.
It is growth. And look, again, winning 4 in a row on the road, that's important, right? This is a team that has struggled on the road. And so for them to be able to start stringing together some wins here, we talked about it on our last episode with Ben Dubose, but just, this next little stretch of about its next 6 games now, right? We can kind of have a pretty solid sample size of like what the post All-Star break Rockets kind of look like. And is this team more so the team that we saw for the first 1/3 of the season, or are they the team that was kind of the team that struggled there in the middle 1/3 of the season? And I think I'm leaning more so towards, this team is really getting back to some of that early identity that they had earlier in the year, even without some of their key pieces, even without Tari Eason, now without Alperen, now without Cam Whitmore. This team is playing some really good basketball, I think, and they're really kind of figuring out how to get back to the success that they had early on. And a guy that had a lot of success in this game that we got to talk about, Jabari Smith Jr. 15 point. Well, he had a lot of success in the second half. Let me backtrack there a little bit. Kind of I don't want to say non-factor in that first half, but it really felt like he did show up in a big way, especially offensively there in that third quarter. I believe he had, if I'm not mistaken, 10 of his 15 points in that third quarter. It really felt like he started to kind of just find his little spots within the offense. And there was one possession late in the game in the fourth quarter where Rockets got a good defensive stop. Jabari had the rebound. He was looking for the outlet to Fred VanVleet. And instead, it wasn't there. I don't know if he was like covered up or what. He just elected to bring the ball up himself, and nobody stopped him, right? Nobody checked him. Nobody picked him up. And he just dribbled directly into, a midi right around the free throw line. Right? We've seen Jabari hit that, dribble, pull up at the free throw line, 1,000 different times, maybe not 1,000, but we've seen him hit that shot a lot. It's a comfort shot for him. And Ryan Holland said something that I thought was so important is Jabari was playing like a basketball player. He wasn't playing like a robot. And I think that sometimes Jabari can be a little robotic in how he plays. And it really felt like that second half, he was kind of just settling in and just playing the way that he needs to play to be effective.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the best part about Jabari's offensive game is, to me, Jabari always lets the game come to him, and he knows where his spots on the floor are. He understands his game very well, and a lot better than most of the young players on our team. I thought that Jabari took the opportunities that came to him, and he had some good shot creation middies, like you said, the mid range in transition, and those are just shots that Jabari works on every day. He knows that very little people can actually contest those shots, and he shoots them with confidence and knocks them down. You can tell he's in the gym working on those shots over and over again. Even last year, when he wasn't knocking those shots down, you could tell he knew that is what he wanted to be his bread and butter. And when you know that, and when you work on that type of stuff, it comes through in your game. And so it was nice to see him get going in that and still take threes confidently. There was one big three hit when there was just a misdirection on the play, and it left him wide open at the top of the key, and he immediately stepped into that three and took it with confidence. And that's the type of stuff we want to see from Jabari. I thought defensively he's been really, really good, much better since the Clippers game. And I thought he was active. He rotates and he switches very well. And I thought he was good all game, rotating and really making a good effort on that end. And I think his activity and hands have continued to be good in the paint. So I'm really proud of Jabari in all of his work. I just need him. I don't know what's going on with him I like to call it, sometimes it's just a lack of focus with some of these passes. Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
Man, he has about 2 or 3 a game, but it's not just the passes. Like last game, he was like standing out of bounds one time when we passed him the ball, and he caught the ball and he's out of bounds. He just forgot where he was on the floor. And it's like those are the type of things that just happen sometimes, right? But for Jabari, I feel like they're happening a little bit more than they need to.
The mental lapses,
like he's having but offensively. And today it was one where he was just running down the court and he didn't realize Jalen passed it to him because he was open, streaking down the court, right? And he just didn't look, and it goes out of bounds.
That kind of goes into it, maybe even less so like the mental lapse. I think it's like the robotic thing where he's just like, I got to go to the corner, right? He's not actually watching what's going on, and he's like, we're setting up this play. I got to go be in that spot in the court. And meanwhile, Jalen was like looking to, so it's
he's like, oh, you're streaking. You're about to have an open three, or you're going to be able to attack in this situation. And he's just like, oh, I'm just coming down the court, and it's just like, all right, come on, we got to lock in. Those type of terms. So I just, especially these last two games, he's had a couple of those moments, but I just want him to lock in on those, and he'll have more all around games, I think, once he does that. For sure.
And I think kind of harkening back to something that you were talking about in the first segment, right, is this, Jock Landale kind of coming in and giving this, Rockets team, you didn't say the word structure. What word did you use? Purpose.
The offensive purpose. Kind of anchoring our offense.
Yeah. And I think that there's a way for the Rockets to do that a bit more than what we saw in this first game with Jabari Smith Jr. Now, there's going to be an argument to be had, and we'll probably do it right here on this show about, should Jock Landale be the starter over, say, Amin Thompson, or, does it make more sense to have Jock Landale be in that starting unit in some capacity? Now, regardless of what that ultimately looks like, and maybe there's an argument for maybe Dillon Brooks to take a seat on the bench with some of his recent play, but I will say that I would have liked to see a little bit more from Jabari in this game as far as just like some elbow touches, right? Running some offense through him a little bit more. And one thing that I'm really surprised the Rockets don't do more of is pick and pop with Jabari, because and some of that needs to go into, right, if he sets better screens, right, his guards can get a little bit further downhill. There are some moments throughout the season where we do see Jabari get into some pick and roll actions with his guards, but I do think a big part of it is he's not setting hard enough screens, so his guards aren't getting deep enough into the defense to kind of force the Jabari's defender to really kind of shade and cut off their driving lane to where it opens him up. And some of that, right, is if a defense is switching, then you're not going to get as many pick and pops. But what you can get is if a defense is switching, you can get mismatches. And I think there was only one point this game where the Rockets highlighted a mismatch where Jabari got a smaller guy on him. It was when Fred got Wemby on him and then pulled the ball all the way out, pulled Wemby out to the perimeter, and then realized Jabari had the small on him on the weak side, swung the ball around the horn, got it down to Jabari, and he got to his turnaround fade, right? And it was money, cash money. So I think there's just ways that I'd like to, especially without Sengun in the lineup now, right? When Sengun was out there, it got to be a little clunky, right? Because you've got two kind of guys that could occupy, the low post area or kind of the elbow area offensively. And obviously Sengun was the better, more effective one in those spots on the floor. So you want to run as much of your offense through him. But now with Jabari and now with this kind of opportunity with more shots to go around, you're not going to feed all those shots into a Jock Landale or a Dillon Brooks or whatever. So, there should be more of an offensive opportunity for Jabari to take on a little bit more. And I'd like to see, Ime Udoka get a little bit more creative with how to get him in some effective spots to close out this season. But we got final thoughts from this game. Some of the concerns with Dillon Brooks and his play as of late. The fouling is becoming a serious issue. Fred VanVleet with a very solid stat line, 21, 7, and 7 to help lead the Rockets to the dub in San Antonio. And we got a few more things we want to get to. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 players' stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is so simple to play. You can make your picks and submit an entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types is what makes Prize Picks the #1 DFS app on the market. And now it's Demon time on Prize Picks. Demon and Goblins are the newest and most exciting way to play at Prize Picks. Squares marked with red demons or green goblins get you different payouts. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. So if you've been thinking about getting into daily fantasy sports, give Prize Picks a chance. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA with promo code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Today's episode is also brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood is the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, one of the reasons for, I think, the Rockets' success in this game is despite Victor Wembanyama and his playmaking chops getting 6 assists in this one, the Rockets just did a great job bottling up Wemby, right? The Spurs, and Craig even talked about this at one point in the broadcast, is the Spurs just, I don't know how they've made it this deep in the season and they still can't figure out how to get their best player the basketball in spots for him to be successful. It's almost like there's moments where Wemby gets a rebound and elects to like dribble it up himself because he feels like he's not going to get the ball back if he gives it up to another player. There are so many, but I want to give a little bit of credit to the Rockets defense for kind of flummoxing the Spurs a little bit when it comes to that, right? Because they switch everything so effectively. Dillon Brooks shadowed Wemby all night long. When Dillon Brooks wasn't on Wemby, we had guys, Jabari would check him, or Jock Landale, or even Jae'Sean Tate, who, next man up mentality. Shout out to Jae'Sean Tate, consummate professional. He didn't hang his head. He's not sulking that he got cut from the rotation over these last few weeks or this last month or so. He checks in, he does his work. He had some great defensive possessions, against Wemby, or coming over as the help side defender to kind of stop Wemby, on the back line of defense as, somebody else was like fronting him at the rim, those kinds of things. So I do think the Rockets collectively did a decent job really slowing Wemby down. The fouls from Dillon Brooks, it's a concerning trend. Maybe it's something we'll revisit in a future episode. But the backcourt play for the Rockets in this one, Fred VanVleet, 21, 7 and 7, 7 of 16 shooting, not super great, but 3 of 9 from downtown, got to the charity stripe 4 times, hit them. An overall solid game from Fred. 2 steals, 2 blocks. Again, Fred VanVleet being credited with the blocks, the strips that he has when guys go up around the rim. And then Jalen Green, 16 points, 5 of 16 shooting, 2 of 6 from downtown, 4 of 5 at the free throw line, including 2 very clutch free throws to extend the lead and give the Rockets kind of that 3-point buffer there at the very tail end of the game. He did have 7 boards and 5 assists as well. What did you think about, just Jalen and Fred's performances in this one?
Well, first of all, Fred, once again, steady Freddy. This is the Fred that we need to win games. We need a steady Fred VanVleet. He's able to sense when the Rockets are struggling offensively and kind of take over in the pick and roll and get to his mid-range game. If he doesn't have the 3 immediately, he still knows how to get to his mid-range and where his shots come on the floor. You don't see Fred taking a lot of shots in the paint because he know that isn't his skill. And there's also a 7'8" giant down there. You know what I mean? He can't, and that's just not high percentage shots for him. And so Fred's understanding of where his spots are on the floor, even in these situations, allow him to get into rhythm like he did. And you just showed this is what vet experience is with Sengun being out. He's still able to be effective against this team. And that kind of goes into, I think Jalen struggles offensively today. I think Jalen struggles offensively. Of course, Jalen's not been able to really consistently shoot the ball all year. But I think a lot of that has to do with Jalen not understanding his spots on the floor, and especially against certain personnel. So tonight, Jalen was kind of deterred from the rim a lot because of Wemby, and when he tried, he had some success getting to the line, and he had some really big fails, like the one block on Wemby. But one of the things that he didn't do a lot was into that mid-range game. That mid-range game,
because he hit his first 2 buckets from mid-range. I was sitting here thinking, okay, great, he's going to cook from mid-range tonight.
And this is my biggest issue with Jalen right now is with your 3-point shot being so volatile and how much the Rockets play out of the pick and roll. You have to get in the gym and understand how to get shots that no matter what type of night you're having, you'll always be able to make. And that's just about the repetition. We talk about Jabari knowing his spots on the floor. We talk about Fred VanVleet knowing how to get to that mid-range. That is a bucket you have to be able to go get. And, you can get it around the free throw line, elbow area. Those are easy buckets. And Jalen doesn't take enough of those shots. Once you begin to take those shots and make them at a high enough clips, you get to mix in, you get to bring those guys packing the paint out of the paint. They're going to hard hedge on you, and then you can give them the hezzy and now get to the rim. Now you can start to use and mix in your speed, but you have to be able to rely on something that is less volatile than your 3-point shot, right? And so, yes, he's had this kind of renaissance at the rim, which I think is very important for him, but guys are going to know that, he's finishing at the rim. We're going to sink hard to the rim. So you have to have that in-between game. We've talked about this a bit, but guards of his ilk and size are elite in that area. We talk about Devin Booker. We talk about Bradley Beal. You have to establish that mid-range game, especially with shot blockers, to bring them out of the paint so that you can get to the basket. And so I think with Sengun being out, now it's even more important because you're not going to have the same type of release valve and gravity from that release valve that allows you to get more buckets and buckets through Sengun. Sometimes you're going to have to take that shot and know that you can make it. And that is a shot that can become automatic because of how close it is to the rim and won't take as much time to develop as your 3-point shot. So I like Jalen to do that and also become a better facilitator, which I think he's done all year, and he did very well tonight. I thought Jalen was actually the first player to start hitting guys on the roll tonight. And I thought this Rockets offense had very poor ball movement in that first quarter. And a lot of it, I thought Fred VanVleet missed Alperen on some rolls to the rim. But regardless of that, I thought
it felt like Fred was a little, maybe, I don't want to say tunnel vision, but just kind of felt like, okay, no Sengun in the lineup. I got to go get my shots. And to his credit, he started the game off pretty high. He had what, I believe, eight first quarter points. And, he tied the team in leading for field goals. Him and Jalen both with 16 field goal attempts in this game. It kind of felt like there was a lot of onus on Fred. Like, okay, I got to go get mine and get going so that I can be our steady diet of offense if we need to. And he was, right? He was the team high, 21 points scored. So he did what he needed to do. But I think some of that maybe took away from his usual, mentality of I'm going to get guys involved. Yeah. Exactly. Those little things. To your point about Jalen, right? The shots he hit in this game, he had the 2 middies that he started with back to back, which looked really good. Then completely it got away from him. He had one finish inside, that one finish where he went up through contact, absorbed the contact, and was able to hang in the air with shot. A side note, I love that play because it really felt like that's how Jalen can use his athleticism to be a good finisher around the rim. Take the contact, you can jump, and you've got incredible hang time, absorb, and then shoot it on the as you're falling down, right? I think sometimes he tries to get the shot off as he's going up, and if you just absorb that initial bump and you stay composed on the way down, it was really beautiful that he hit that shot. And then he was 2 of 6 from the 3-point line, so his 5 makes total. But agree with everything you said about Jalen. Now, something that I know we wanted to talk about here, and you hinted at it a little bit in segment 1, Amin Thompson and his, using him kind of in that pseudo Sengun role offensively, kind of that connective tissue piece as a screen setter, as a roller, somebody that he's absolutely got the court vision to unlock some of the same things that Sengun can do offensively. My concern, though, is he just doesn't have the necessary scoring gravity yet, because you saw the way the Spurs elected to guard Amin Thompson with Victor Wembanyama. And this is going to be a continuing trend, right? We've seen the Rockets do it against guys like Jeremy Sohan. We've seen them do it against guys like Josh Giddey. If you cannot shoot the basketball, if you are literally just not a threat to shoot from anywhere outside of the paint, then defenses are going to sag on you, and they're going to put their big on you, or they're going to put a defender on you and allow that person to roam and kind of blow up other plays defensively. Now, I do think that over the course of the game, the Rockets did some good things to kind of, force a switch or pull Victor Wembanyama out of the paint and be able to, attack and get things going. But for when Amin was on the floor, it kind of felt like the Rockets were just at a disadvantage, because I don't know how, especially if Victor is the guy checking you, I don't know how Amin can attack that coming out of the roll it's just, I think it's almost a losing proposition.
Yeah, but I mean, good thing it's not going to be a whole lot of Victor Wembanyama we play. You know what I mean? And
you know what? That's fair.
So that, you know, Victor has this ability to just guard two players at one time with his length. Like there was one play where Jalen drove very hard. He got an advantage and dropped it off to Thompson. And any other time that would have been a dunk, but Victor just was able to move and guard both of them at the same time. But I don't think we have to worry about that too much more often. But what you're saying is important. I think it's very important, especially if we're going to start Thompson, that he is our primary screener and we use him in the short roll game. I think that Amon, from the short roll, will finally be able to utilize his excellent IQ as a passer. We've seen flashes, but because his ball handling isn't quite there yet, we haven't been able to really tap into that. But I think from the short roll, that's only 2 or 3 dribbles, when he needs to score from that. And he has enough handle to make a fake, a Euro step, and athleticism to finish in those areas. He just has to make sure he's rolling on time and hard or staying in the passing window where he can receive the ball and make a play. And that is what I think he needs to work on. I actually thought he set some pretty good solid screens that at least freed up guys a little bit to kind of create advantages, but he didn't stay in those passing pockets. A couple times he did where there was one time where he had a lob, but the angle was still weird. So the ball was coming over and it just took a delay for him to actually get up, but it actually ended up in a foul. I think Sohan fouled him trying to disrupt the lob, but that angle was just a bit off because he doesn't know how to quite roll. Guys don't know how to play with him as a roller. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be key for this offense that we get him involved in that, because he's going to be able to make some of those passes, and we still have Jabari who's out in the corner stretching the floor. We do want Jabari as a screener, but when you reverse that, I think we should use Jabari as a screener in those areas in the short roll as well, because he can shoot out of the short roll. And when you can shoot and don't use a lot of athleticism, you can make multiple decisions. And this could be a perfect opportunity for Jabari to work on his playmaking, because that is an area of his game that he doesn't have a lot of experience with. But I think in the short roll, that could open up some things for him. And I'd like to see him hit Amon for some of those backdoor cuts that Sengun does as well.
There's a lot of questions that we have about this new Rockets starting lineup. Should this be the Rockets' continued new starting lineup, or is there an argument to be made for Jock Landale to be inserted in there as he continues to play out of his mind? Last couple notes from this one before we shut this show down. Shout out to Jalen Green and also Uncle Jeff, who both tried to completely poster Victor Wembanyama in this game to no avail, but both tries were valiant efforts both times. Jeff Green tried to do his patented Statue of Liberty driving dunk on Wemby and tried to turn back the clock. He thought he was 22 instead of 47. Shout out to Craig Ackerman, who had this whole, revelation where it's like, hey, wasn't the Statue of Liberty a gift from France? So if Jeff Green had yammed on Victor with the Statue of Liberty dunk, he would have been returning the Statue of Liberty to France. I thought that was a hilarious moment. And then Jalen Green had his moment where he, broke down his defender, got to the paint, and basically almost tried to yam on Jeremy Sohan and Victor Wembanyama. Kind of, didn't quite have control of the ball on the way up. But man, that would have been, after his poster on Anthony Simons, I mean, the league is on notice and nobody's trying to be on the receiving end of a Jalen Green poster moving forward. But on that note, Madison, you know the drill. Let everybody know where to track you down at.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at MadmanLeaks. Come talk Rockets basketball with me.
That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.